Hi, my name is Pennie Mahon, and I am the proud owner of Barks Fifth Avenue, Team Hero member, and the 2012 Skyhoundz World Champion, the Open Division. I get asked a lot of times what got me into the sport of disc dogging, and what really got me into the sport of disc dogging is Psyche, my 2012 World Champion's grandmother. Her name was Bandita. It was a little blue heeler. That's what got us started in the sport. She had tons of energy. We needed something for her to do. It was my husband's dog, and we had seen in about I believe it was 99, my husband and I were laying in bed late one night watching TV and saw the Alpo World Finals. And it was the first time that I had ever seen freestyle flying disc. I had been involved in many dog sports throughout my lifetime. I had raised and trained horses and shown them, and I had spent the majority of that time in the equine industry. And when I saw that night on TV, the freestyle, I knew then, and I said to my husband, if I ever get into a competitive sport with dogs, that is what I want to do. And fast forward to 2001, and my husband mentioned that he wanted to get a little blue heeler puppy. It was near Father's Day, so I got a little blue heeler puppy for him, and that's Psyche's grandmother. That's the one that we started with. Since then, I fell in love with the sport as soon as I started playing it. I believe that the canine and human bond in Frisbee is, to me, it's very unique. It is something that we train our dogs to do, but when you're out on the field and once you have trained the different moves that you put together and link together in a routine, the communication is not that we're out giving our dogs commands. The communication is in our body language. My dog and I work together as a team. We read each other. There is no cooler feeling, in my opinion, than being out on the Frisbee field and jamming with your dog. So as soon as I got into the sport and I started experiencing some of that, I guess you could say the rest is history. We've been going now for about 13 years. And what I have found in the sport, and back to the question where everybody says, how'd you get started and what do you get out of the sport? There are so many layers of what I have learned and gotten out of not only being in the sport, but having all of my animals and training for the sport. The relationship that you have with your dogs is unbelievable, like I had mentioned before. But what they teach you, each and every dog, I've had the pleasure now of playing with about 6 dogs. I've taken about 4 or 5 of those as world champions and as world finalists. And each one of them has been a completely different journey. Yes, we train dogs, but that experience, what comes out of it, they're really life lessons for us as human beings. Not only as a competitor, but like I said, as in the relationship and training with your dog. So I have gotten out of this sport humility, I have gotten patience, I have gotten acceptance, I have definitely learned a balance of striving for the highest goals and what you want, but having a balance in the rest of your life as well, and with yourself. So there's many things that I personally have gotten out of experiencing this sport with my dogs. One thing that I would like to share is my experience of winning the 2012 Skyhoundz World Finals, because that to me was the ultimate goal that I had set 12 years prior. And the experience itself and that particular year, there were more life lessons in that year than my whole journey. And what that was is that I had an incredible dog, being Psyche, and quite frankly, I had gotten by in this sport and done quite well with minimal effort in terms of training the dogs and working with the dogs. I strived very hard as far as my skills. but I was not very disciplined. I was in the very beginning, but as soon as I got my skills to where I could compete, I kind of just took the easy way out. I wasn't very regimented, I wasn't very structured, and so even though I wasn't as structured and as disciplined as I wanted, I was very successful. And when this dog turned 4 years old, I had chased the World Finals, being a point behind, a half a point behind in every organization. And I knew inside that I wasn't giving 100%. Some of those things had to do with training. Some of those things had to do with me personally, my physical condition. And I had a conversation with probably the most influential person that has influenced me and my mentor in this sport, and that would be Chuck Middleton. And after the 2011 year, and I had, like I said, almost captured several world championships, I had a real conversation with myself. And I called Chuck Middleton and I shared with him my conversation, which was, I'm really disappointed in myself. And I feel like that God has blessed me with the dog or the animal that I've always strived to have in my competitive career, whether it be with horses or with dogs. And to some sense, I felt like I was wasting him, that I owed it to him to try harder, to be more disciplined, to do the work inside myself. And so Chuck Middleton asked me, what's it going to take? Do you want it bad enough? Is the desire there? I said, absolutely, the desire's there. He said, how determined are you? I said, it's there. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm determined. And he said, well, then you're going to have to be dedicated, because that's the key. And so fitting it into my lifestyle of owning a business, fitting in regimented training sessions, I even started journaling, which I had never done before. That was actually work for me. And the other aspect of it is that I had been about anywhere from 50 to 65 pounds overweight my whole disc dog career. And even though I had been, I again had done quite well, but I knew that I could do better. And I knew that on the field, as far as my psychological game, my competitive game, I knew that it was holding me back. So one of the commitments that I had talked to Chuck about was that I was going to get myself in shape. And so I started that year, and I was very proud of myself. We did very well. I worked very, very hard. I trained hard. I journaled. I had regular conversations with Chuck. I went and trained with him. And I lost about 15 pounds in August. And I had qualified for all of the world finals, all the different organizations, but I had only lost about 15 pounds. But I had done my work with my dog, but minimal with me. And when August rolled around and I knew that the first championship was the Skyhoundz World Finals coming up at the end of September, I had another real serious talk with myself. And I got myself busy and losing weight, my diet, my exercise. And by the World Finals in September, I had lost about 25 pounds. Going into that World Finals, physically and mentally, it shifted who I was as a competitor. And I didn't realize what lied ahead that weekend at that World Championship. But I felt more prepared than I had ever felt before going into a World Championship. I got there, and all the attention that I got just from the physical transformation that had taken place, all of my friends from all over, that was certainly a confidence booster, and it just continued throughout the whole weekend. One thing that I do want to share, which was when I reflected back on it, the moments prior to going into my final round of competition at that World Finals, knowing that I was leading it going into the final round, I took some time to get off to myself and my dog, and I really reflected on everything that had brought me to that point, because at that moment, even if I had not won that World Championship, I felt an enormous and immense accomplishment, even just going into that final round. And so I had a talk with my dog, and it was great, and we headed towards the on deck when they were calling our name. Chuck Middleton, my mentor, happened to be in second place right behind me, and it was a pretty close race. And I walked up, and my walk going to that on deck, again, as I reflected back after history was in the books, It was almost, my son is in MMA, and this is the best way that I can describe the feeling that I had emotionally and mentally heading to that on deck. I watch a lot of fighters, and when they come out and they have their walk to the ring, it's pretty obvious that they're focused. Everything that they've trained, all the discipline that they've put in, it's for that moment. And I truly felt like one of those fighters walking to that on deck. I had people, all of my friends, all of the people that were near and dear to me that were there to root me on, they were saying things to me as I was walking up there. Way to go, Pennie, you can do it, you're gonna do it, you're awesome. And I could hear it all going on, but honestly, I was in my own world. Another friend of mine, when I got to the on deck, this was profound, the conversation that happened. When I got to the on deck, Mark Muir was standing there. And Mark Muir looked at me, and he's always encouraged me in the sport. And I took a deep breath when I got there, and Chuck Middleton was out doing his round. And I wasn't even watching him, which, by the way, I always watched him. But funny thing is that I never even thought about watching him. And so I got to the on deck, and Mark Muir said, he looked at me as soon as I got there, he said, "You know you got this, right?" And my answer to him without hesitation was, "Yeah, I think I do." And he said, "I know you do." And he said, "All you have to do is, you've got to go do what you do on the practice field." And in that moment, I felt it, I visualized it, it was real, the experience of the practice field. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, I think I can do that." And my name got called, and I looked at my dog and I said, "Let's go, buddy," and we went out onto the field. When we got onto the field, of course, there was a lot of pressure, and even though I was focused, when you're in that kind of a position, it's a lot of pressure as a competitor. I didn't want to waste the opportunity, and so I actually opened up my routine with my second set instead of my first one, was able to gather my thoughts and quickly go into my first set for my second, sent out a long sidearm that went like a bullet towards the judges and the photographer. Psych, in his normal way of being, which he saves me all the time, caught the disc, and in that moment, the energy of everyone at that World Finals, everyone screamed and the energy went through the roof. I had goosebumps with my dog running back to me. He caught another amazing throw. He was circling around me and cut his eyes up to me. And I'm not saying that he actually said this to me, but emotionally, my dog looked at me and said, "Be free, go play, we're here." And from that moment on, that last round of freestyle, he again saved me. But I did a pretty good job myself. And from that was the most amazing round of freestyle. And when I came off of that field, I knew that I had won that world championship. And that was in 2012. And the way that that has transformed and changed my life is, yes, that accomplishment itself, that victory, that is very satisfying. It's very gratifying. But the impact that what I went through as a human getting up to that point has impacted my life, the relationships in my life, much more than anything else I've ever tried to do or accomplished. So where do we go from here? I'll admit that I've won that world championship. There's definitely a thirst that's been quenched. Now it's interesting because I want to win another one, but now I'm looking at it a little differently. I want to take on some different dogs, and I'm looking for what's going to happen next. The transformation that's happened in my life so far because of these dogs and because of this sport is amazing, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So I'm just looking forward to what comes next. What else is this going to teach me? These animals, these dogs, these people in my life, these relationships, it's amazing. And like I said, when I say that my dog told me that, when you work with a dog as close as you do and you are so in tune to their energy and they're in tune to your energy, absolutely I was the uptight one. And I'm telling you, I'm not saying that my dog knew that he was out there to win a world championship. He knew something was different. And he knew that I was emotionally charged, and it was a beautiful experience. And I don't know that anyone can really understand that unless you've really worked with an animal. It doesn't have to be a dog, because I tried to accomplish that same experience with horses my whole life, and that experience in itself was amazing. Wouldn't change that at all. Wouldn't change anything the way it's happened. Wouldn't have changed that I did horses all that time before and now just later in my life got into Frisbee. Because everything I learned there I think has impacted who I am here, you know, in this sport as well. But, you know, I can't help but focus on those things, Rob, because really, that is truly, we go out here and play with our dogs. Why do we spend all the time, energy, money, all of that? Sacrifice. We sacrifice in a lot of other aspects of our life to do this, because there's real lessons that get learned. It's not superficial. We're not just out there playing with our dogs.